Hey, welcome everybody. This is John Paul Maducha, Dr. Speed Song, welcoming you to the Raging Verbalist number 47. For those who've just stumbled upon this, we go live on Raging Verbalist time every single Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time, soon to be Pacific Standard Time. Check us out. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. And in fact, YouTube group is Position to Win Book, and that's because, of course, that's my book that we have out there. Anyway, so, and also Raging Verbalist on YouTube. Subscribe, click the like, hit the little button, do all those things. If you haven't figured that out by now, you're probably pretty new to YouTube. So, anyway, every week we get together, we talk about a variety of different things. And today is no different. I am joined, as always, or almost always, by the lovely Sandra. And Sandra, welcome to Raging Verbalist number 47.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So, for those of you who don't know, I mean, we are going to be talking about some interesting things. Hopefully, you'll learn a few things, you get a few laughs, and then if you want to ask questions or something, because Sandra will be the person who is asking the questions of me. I have seen the questions ahead of time. It is an open book test, like most of life. My question is, since life is like an open book question, how many people, why do they fail so miserably? I don't know, but all right, Sandra, what is the first question that we have?
Yeah, how long has it been since you've spoken to a live audience?
Well, that is a good question, and that is a question that we're going to delve into today. So, last Friday, I actually was able to speak to a live in-person group of people, a little bit of a herd, smaller than normal audience, and it had actually been since last October. So you talk about withdrawal, almost exactly a year ago that had my event in Las Vegas, 3 days. It's called Shred Your Reality. And that was the last time I spoke live. And it is pretty crazy because I was very much used to a more active speaking schedule. COVID came in and wiped that out. So during that period of time, now doing lots of things like this, right? Raging Verbalists, we're up to number 47. So it's not like we're, sitting around idle, not thinking what to do. But there is really a different dynamic, which we'll get into. But yeah, it has been almost exactly a year since Shred Your Reality. And by the way, for those of you who don't know of all the things that I have, go to the positiontowinbook.com and go check out what is out there. Yes, shameless plug for those of you who can't figure it out. So I don't know, maybe you're not tall enough to ride the ride. Anyway, so Sandra, what is the next question that you have? Lay it on.
All right, so I heard you had 2 road trips in 2 weeks, and what was that like?
So that was really interesting because I'm a drive-in guy. I actually drove just shy of 3,000 miles over the last couple of weeks. And I can tell you that going on road trips like this is really fascinating. When you go through different states, you go through different sense of what's going on and how they view the pandemic or don't view the pandemic. Last week was no different. I was, much more aware of the fact. And by the way, this is a warning to everybody if you're watching this contemporaneously, is that every single highway patrol person who can be out there is out there. And I understand why. I had my cruise control set appropriately. And I have seen people blow by me in a very high speed, a high rate of speed. And of course, I want to thank them all for helping to clear out the highway patrol in front of me. So yeah, so that was really interesting. And I can tell you that doing it 2 weeks in a row, here's what I really figured out is that I'm really out of road trip or road warrior shape. Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit like for the that scene in Apocalypse Now where he says, every day I stay in the hotel, I get softer every day. Charlie squats in the jungle, he gets stronger. Well, I feel a little bit like that because I can tell you that I was a little out of sorts by the time I got back from my second road trip. Don't have one planned for a while, but I can tell you that it was very different. I have not been in this kind of non-traveling mode for it's decades. I mean, it's just kind of like a shock to the system. And it was just pretty wild, and just to see what was going on out there. So yeah, it was fun. It was exciting. On other ways, it was a pain in the ass because there's different restrictions in different states and different things and different stuff. So there you go. And I'm knocking on wood that I didn't catch anything, little or big. Just hopefully I didn't catch anything. So yes, it was quite an experience, good one, but quite an experience. And I guess got a little bit of that cabin fever out of me. So all right, what's the next thing that we're gonna dive into? What are we gonna go right to?
Yeah, so go through how things have changed being on the road.
Well, the first thing that's changed is that, every place you go or every place I went had signs. Most of them had signs, no mask, no stuff. I mean, previously, if you wore a mask, people would get upset because, of course, the cameras couldn't check you out. So that was one thing. I can tell you that, the number of people who are out on the road it's got to be less than before. I mean, it's pretty interesting. So there's that quantity size thing. And then the other part is just staying in hotels and motels is so different than before. So I stayed at the Homewood Suites, and here's what was kind of interesting: the Homewood Suites, because Homewood Suites is all about, you've got a breakfast, and then they got little snacks, and then they got a little dinner. And no, they don't have any of that stuff because they don't know how to do that without having problems with COVID. So in the morning, they had virtually nothing. They had, a little bit of yogurt, a little bit of, watered down orange juice, and, a granola bar or something. And that was about it. So I think that was kind of strange. The other thing is that, that they have removed things like coffee pots. I don't know how a coffee pot was going to get you, but I guess they have no way to clean it. So that was gone. Also, everything said, I mean, I have never smelled so much disinfectant in my life since, I mean, and I know this is going to sound strange, but I mean, I felt like I was in an old porno store years ago, because you'd always have that really antiseptic smell because God knows what they were cleaning out of those boots. I don't want to know. I mean, I guess I could just say I read about it, but no, I was there. Yikes. I mean, really some serious, serious smell. I mean, so if you have any kind of chemical toxicity, I mean, you'd be down for the count. But the whole place smelled like somebody just scrubbed it out. Like, oh, geez. Now I've never seen hotels cleaner. I can tell you that. I mean, I'll tell a quick San Francisco story. Years ago, I went up to San Francisco to go to the Mac show or the Apple show. Long gone, by the way. But I went there to see it live. So I wanted to stay at kind of a funkier, not a chain kind of hotel. And the person I had working for me at the time lived in San Francisco. So she said, John, I know this really cool hotel, and I'll help you get a room there. So I get a room there, and all I can say is that there was a stain on the carpet that, all it really needed was a chalk line around it. And, the furniture was screwed up, and the lampshade looked like somebody had punched it really seriously hard. And then they just kind of, set it back up. And all I can say is I was in that. I wasn't going to ever take off my shoes or socks. And it was when I pulled down the bed sheet and I looked at it and I said, nope, I'm out of here. So I checked in and checked out of that one in about 40 minutes. And by the way, when I checked out, the guy goes, great, we have other people who are waiting for the room. Yikes. That's all I could say. But now I can tell you the room was incredibly clean. Now it's kind of hard to navigate through things, but it was, in this case for the second week, the hotel was pretty full, had a lot of occupancy. And that was interesting to watch what was going on there. So that was different. And then the fact that, when I'm on the road, I go to like regular stores. I mean, I always found it really interesting when I would meet people who say they're road warriors, but they couldn't find anything to eat. And I said, "You mean where you go to, they don't have like supermarkets and they don't have things like that?" And I'm here to tell you that Arizona had supermarkets just like here at home. I mean, it wasn't that foreign of a land. So that was kind of interesting. And to see what was going on out there in that world. I would say the other big change that I've seen versus my years of being on the road is that there's a certain level of uneasiness and caution and uncertainty about what's going on. They haven't fixed the shitty TV situation. They're all LCDs, but they're still shitty TVs, and that hasn't changed. I don't think that's going to ever change because they're just cheap TVs. And by the way, ended up with really good Wi-Fi last week, which thank you to the Wi-Fi gods. I offer up a sacrifice of something because we were able to do a call, Sandra and I, with a client, and that actually worked. What I told the guy that the Wi-Fi, well, I had to pay for the premium, by the way, so I did. I popped the extra $4.95 plus tax. Got to get tax on my Wi-Fi. And when I told him it worked really well, he was like, wow, and he was going to mark that down because I guess every day people walk up to him and tell him how shitty the Wi-Fi is. And the reason for it is that we now live in a society where people show up and the first thing they do is they're now watching, hopefully raging verbalists, but they're watching YouTube, they're watching Netflix, they're watching whatever, and sucking up all the bandwidth. So that worked out really well. So I was happy about that. So I think that was the big things that I noticed. Maybe they're little things to everybody else. Oh, but wait, actually the biggest thing was I wanted to actually do some business in Arizona, and every single government office is shut down. If you want to do business, you have to do it through a website and go work through it. The previous week, I had to do some business in Nevada, and when I pulled up in Las Vegas, found a parking spot right up front. Right away, that's telling me, John, go play a slot. Right. Walked in and met with the got in a line. There wasn't much of a line. Got taken care of. They even helped fix some things, which almost blew me away because every other time I've dealt with bureaucracy, but not, I'm not saying Nevada, but they did a really nice job and got that wrapped up. But they were open, and Arizona was shut down. So those are the things that were different, and those are things that changed. Now things are changing out there, and you may want to be up and aware of it and actually look at ways to improve what you're doing. And of course, I have one thing that I'm recommending to everybody, which is go to Position to Win book Facebook group, and that way you can ask questions and do those kinds of things. But if you haven't read this, if you're still in the lockdown mode of some kind, then what I would highly recommend is this book, which is Most Businesses Fail in the First 5 Minutes. It just takes them 3 to 5 years to realize that. Position to Win, get it? Position to Win book, Position to Win. But most businesses fail in the first 5 minutes. And if you'll notice, this one has lots of little Post-it notes because this is my copy of the book. Because I sold all the rest of them last week, so I'm down to this one. This is the one that John doesn't sell or give away. So I would highly recommend you do that. It's available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, all those other places. Also available in Kindle, Apple, and Nook. Okay, so there's that. Also, if you have not gone over and checked out turnaroundengine.com, if you want to figure out how to make money during this pandemic and how to make your career better and figure out what to do, go check out turnaroundengine.com. We're about ready to do a new big announcement. It has not come yet, but soon it will. So you may want to go check that out. All right. Having said that, Sandra, what do we have next? What's up?
All right. Who is Dave Freeze?
So if you notice that we said, freeze in the desert, and it was kind of a play on his name, and it isn't like freeze like Burr, because it was 100 frickin' degrees all last week in Arizona. And of course, people in Arizona are like going, wow, it's feeling pleasant, right? It isn't 115. which I understand. I mean, lizards are probably going, man, it's a little chilly. Got to get a little, get a little lizard coat or something. But Dave Freeze, Frees, is a good friend of mine. Dave has a once a year event that happens in Arizona. And in fact, I was, fortunate enough. I think this is my 6th year. I'd have to go back through, but this is my 6th year in a row that I've spoken at his event. And he said, John, I'm going to do it. Arizona's opened up. We're going to be socially distanced. We're going to be in good shape. Also, we're going to be speaking outdoors. But Dave Freeze is a really interesting guy. You may want to go check him out, go look him up. But Dave Freeze is a really smart guy. And Dave has written a couple of books, but more importantly, Dave helps people in their business. I mean, rarely do I pitch somebody else in this because I'm too shamelessly pitching myself. But Dave is a really good guy. He's a smart person. Was trained as interrogator by, the black ops kind of guys. Has lots of interesting black ops people at his event. I would highly recommend if you've never attended or known about Dave's stuff. Again, this is kind of like really on the quiet. He doesn't do a lot of promotion, and I just feel like it's important to talk about it. And then, of course, he left the, what some would say is a rather unscrupulous thing, which is being an interrogator. But to me, he descended because he became a lawyer and, and a tax lawyer on top of that. So yeah, check him out. He's in Philadelphia. Dave is a great guy. He has a great team. And, they do an awesome job for that. And Dave is, and that's why I say Freeze in the Desert. It was great to see that he made it from Philly to Phoenix. I guess the P2P move. And it was really good. And it was great seeing Dave. And Dave, if you're watching this, hey, thanks a lot. You're a good guy. So yeah, that was my entree, and I really appreciate that he had the courage and guts to do it and put it out there. So what's your next thing? What do you got?
Yeah, what kind of crowd was there?
Well, normally he has about 40, 50 people. And what happened is that he, had a little bit smaller crew because there were some people who were concerned, as they should be, who wants to get the terrible crud, who wants to get that and, potentially, risk things. So there's about 25 people. And it was a pretty interesting crowd. I mean, you had people who represented all branches of the military, but now they're doing something else. You had people who are lawyers and physical therapists and, just a wide variety of people. And it's always an exciting crowd because they've now gone through multiple days. In fact, prior to me showing up to speak, which was on Friday evening, is that they had gone out to the shooting range and gone out and shot a bunch of rounds. By the way, there's an ammo shortage in this world. Go figure with, geez, what's going on with the world and social unrest. But yeah, they had gone out and, shot a lot of guns and, they were kind of feeling their excitement, and I had to get up in front of that crowd. So it was a good crowd. And of course we were outside in this arena. And that was fun because, of course, as the sun is going down, I felt like a ant underneath a magnifying glass held by a 10-year-old. So I was just baking in the sun. Of course, I was wearing a black T-shirt. Why not? But yeah, it was pretty crazy. Also, I want to do a shout out to Heather. And Heather was there. And for those of you who don't know Heather, we should probably even think about putting a link, but I want to make sure that I don't misstate her name. So I'm looking up as Wagenhals, Wagenhals. Heather was great. She came out, she took photos for me. She did some videoing for me. So who knows, you might be able to see some of that somewhere else. And she did a great job and stayed. And by the way, after we got all through with that, he had a catered meal, and it was excellent. So excellent crowd, excellent group of people. So what's next?
All right. So what did you talk about while you were there?
So what I talked about and what I think is important is I really shared with them the story about Turnaround Engine and how important the Turnaround Engine network is, and really mostly about intellectual property. So for those of you who are not fully aware of it, is that intellectual property is just dropping to the ground. and it's called the rotten fruit syndrome. So if you ever go out and look at fruit, and you go out to, and I used to have a lemon tree, a grapefruit tree, and an orange tree. Lemon tree died because of my neighbor, jerk. But yeah, well, and that's a longer story, and I'm still in counseling over it. I'm grieving, but I had these citrus trees, and what I discovered, like when you get a grapefruit tree, first year nothing, second year, but eventually, what happens when you get a grapefruit tree that starts producing, look out, because even though you didn't want to be on the grapefruit diet, you're on the grapefruit diet. I mean, you got to start finding people to give grapefruit to, and eventually they're all like, no, no, no. And the homeless guys on the side of the road, you say, hey, here's some grapefruit. And they grab the fruit, and they throw it at you because they get, but what happens is that fruit falls on the ground. So you got to pick it up. Well, that's what it's supposed to do. I mean, that's what nature planned on this thing, right? Fruit tree drops to the ground, rots, seed goes into the ground, gets eaten a little bit sometimes by the birds, all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, it's designed to create more fruit trees. Now, it's called the rotten fruit syndrome because when something drops to the ground, it rots. I mean, it's done, it's over, it's beyond ripe. Well, it's the same thing with intellectual property. And right now, intellectual property is dropping to the ground. People have something inside of their business. They can no longer support it, fund it, keep it going, and they are walking away. Example that I think is very prevalent is people are shutting down their companies, and nobody is like picking up on their customer list. Nobody's picking up and taking these things over. So what I talked a lot about is how to, one, spot intellectual property, but more importantly, how to take advantage of this really once in a lifetime. I've never seen this before in this magnitude. Think about the fact that over 50% of the restaurants it is purported or projected will be closing in New York City forever. Well, every single one of those is an opportunity to pick up some level of intellectual property. And that's just one example. So if you are really interested in that, that's why I developed Turnaround Engine Network, and it's available at turnaroundengine.com. So I spoke a lot about that, and had a lot of good feedback. In fact, most people have no idea how to get their hands on that and how to find it. And I can tell you that it is not like there is an eBay or, where there's a category for it, or Amazon or Etsy or something that says, hey, business failing, sell your intellectual property here. Doesn't happen that way, but there is lots of intellectual property. So I spoke a lot about that, got really good positive feedback, and hopefully some of those people will actually go out and do something like you should be doing something to go out and enrich yourself. Because if you're going to buy something at that kind of dramatic discount that's out there, in a lot of cases you can pick it up for no money down, and go out there and make some money with it. So that's what I spoke about, and it was a well received and well enjoyed conversation. Next.
All right. So are there any other details or things that happened that you'd like to share?
Probably the really interesting thing is that trying to get people off of talking about the COVID-19, I noticed that there's a COVID-19 tax out there, and maybe we'll do a Raging Verbalist just about that. But this is the first time I've actually been with people who, I don't know. I mean, I know them, but don't know them. And it was really interesting because as I was sitting there talking to them, you had to go through well, how are you doing in spite of COVID-19, or how are you doing? Or, did you know about so-and-so, or did you know about this? So it was probably one of the things that really stuck out is the fact of how much energy and time we are spending. Remember, whatever you're talking about, whatever you're thinking about, that is where your energy is going. And I just remember that when Earl Nightingale wrote The Strangest Secret, and he did it first on audio and then later wrote a book, is that the strangest secret is you become what you think about. And I find it interesting because right now, every single person I talk to a person, and I'm talking about just people casually I meet, but in fact, with this group who knew me, is that everyone talked about COVID-19. So we are all paying, unfortunately, a tax of time, energy, and resources, concerned and worried about it. Now, I'm not saying that I'm some kind of Pollyanna, stick it in the back, don't ever think about it. kind of bullshit. But what I am going to tell you is that there is no two ways about it that we are wasting valuable time and energy on something that we can't change. I mean, part of the serenity prayer is, okay, if I can't change it, if I can't do something, then let it go. But there seems to be an enormous amount of media dedicated to try to keep people in this perpetual state of unease and dis-ease and being absolutely paranoid about it. So if you're paying the COVID-19 tax, what I would say is you got to stop. You got to really get your head wrapped around it. And I don't know, because I'm not an epidemiologist, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. Is there a vaccine? Is there a vaccine? I say take care of yourself the best you possibly can. Don't be an idiot and go get into a really tight group of people. Watch what's going on. But more importantly, is quit obsessing about the damn thing, because to me, that's what's costing people so much energy and time. I mean, it's one thing to have people sick and dying, bad. Who's going to be for that, right? But I can tell you right now that there is no way that you should spend an inordinate amount of time. And my guess is that there's probably about a 20%, 22% of everybody's conversation is talking about this damn disease. And what it does is it takes us off of focus. So my final for you is, I wish you the ability to see clearly what your choices and options are and work towards your own goals, your own direction, and move out of this kind of survival mode, which is what this is. This has driven us to a survival mode, and that survival mode has stopped us from actually doing the things that we want to do. Part of life is you get to decide what you're going to do. In fact, when you look around your life, here's the sad truth. Also the good part. The sad truth is that you're in charge. That's the bad news. The good news is that you're in charge. We end up with the life that we, in fact, want to get. We actually do what we want to do based upon the life that we want to get. Now, most people don't believe this because they think that other circumstances, it's all external, something else is happening. I didn't plan on this. I didn't take 30 years to write a damn book just to have, oh, by the way, shameless plug about the book too, right? Got to be able to sneak it in one more time. Anyway, I didn't plan to do that. And then it showed up and it kicked me in the ass. But you know what? It did. So you move on. Life moves on. And that's what you have to do. And with that, I can tell you that if you do that, what you'll do is that you won't freeze in the desert. What you'll do is you'll get uplifted, you'll get excited. And frankly, I just was so happy that I was able to speak to a group of people. And I believe that it is time for us to come out of the caves and start moving forward and interacting with other people. It's worth the chance. It's worth the risk. Do the best you possibly can. And if you do that, I think you're going to have a better life and a better result. So with that, I just want to thank the lovely Sandra. Thank you, Sandra, for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And until next week, this has been the Raging Verbalist number 47. Go subscribe, go watch it on Facebook, check us out, put a comment. If you're going to put something nasty, don't put something nasty. I mean, hey, come on. But hey, if you're going to love it, love it. And with that, I'm just going to say, go on and have a great day, a great week. And more importantly, remember, you get the life, not that you deserve, but the life that you strive and work for to get. Do that and you will achieve more. This is John Paul Medici, the Dr. Speed Selling. The Raging Verbalist is now done. Thanks, everybody.